Okay, so let's talk about how to find sources when writing a research paper. And hopefully this video will be helpful for you for more than just my class. So if you start off at the university's main page and you want to go to the library, easiest way, hop up to quick links, there you go, library. So a couple of things here. Start off looking at the help. You can chat with a librarian. And it's one of our librarians whenever the library is open. Other than that, they've got 24-hour chat with another librarian that they contract with. And I've used this before, like whenever I'm looking for an article and it says that we have it full text online, but then I can't, for some reason, access it full text online. I pull up the chat and say, hey, what's going on? And they've been able to direct me to a different way to get to it to where I can open it up. But for whatever questions you might have, uh, help finding a source, something not working properly with the interface, it's a good place to go. Other things on here, the research guides, some pretty cool stuff on here that Miss McCafferty has put together, and Mr. Lutz. How to find a book, how to find a peer-reviewed journal, a couple of popular ones, and those are brief kind of PowerPoint-looking things. Citing sources, they've got some info here. For APA, it says 5th edition, but really it's a link to help with the 6th edition, which is the most current one. Also some information on plagiarism and academic integrity. That has some information, also some links to more resources. You might take a look at that. If you want to know when the library is open, hours and locations. The TechShare card request. Some of you may not be aware of this, but Texas University has entered into an agreement where basically you can go to several libraries in Texas and check out books and use their resources. We have an agreement with them, but you have to get one of these cards. Local ones, Mayor Hardin Baylor and Belton, Southwestern down in Georgetown, go Pirates. If you get a TechShare card, you can go down there and use their resources. So if maybe there's a book that you see another library has and you don't want to wait on an interlibrary alone, you're willing to drive to go get it, get yourself a TechShare card and go get it. Okay, up here under research, where most of your resources will be, again, more information on plagiarism and academic integrity, definitions, examples, advice on how to avoid it. The tutorial from Indiana University is what I actually use to create the video in our class. Interlibrary loan, for some reason, students don't seem to be aware of this, but it's awesome. You go and you find a lot of times students, when they're searching for articles, they'll only search for full text because, like, well, if they don't have full text, I can't get it. Well, yeah, you can. It's not even that hard. You fill out an interlibrary loan request because some library somewhere will have it, and the librarians get it to you. And typically, what they do now is some librarian somewhere will scan it in and send it to the university, and then they'll email it to you. And for me, when I've done it, it's been a week, maybe 2 weeks. It may take longer, but typically it's pretty quick. And you can do that for articles and other materials as well, but you need to sign up for an account, which is free. Okay, we'll go to databases in a minute. The online catalog, if you're looking for books, and also we have lots of ebooks now. A good place to search for that. But one kind of newer thing for us is when we go to research by subject, we're here to go to psychology and counseling. We've got a whole page of information tailored just for our field, right? So, some interesting links to TED Talks, things in the news, kind of interesting things from APA. And then up at the top, you can navigate, information about how to find books on psychology. Where they're at in the catalog. Some online journals we have specific to psychology. A brief little demo here about how to find journals using the interface. And we'll go to look at all the databases in a minute, but here's a list of, they put together a list of ones that are particularly relevant to psychology and counseling. which you can pretty well group these into families. Things like psych info, psych articles, psychology behavioral science collections, mental measurements yearbook, Medline. A couple of those are all EBSCO databases. So if you use the EBSCO interface, you get all of those in one. And then family health, health and medical complete, health management, nurse and allied health source, pharmaceutical news index. A lot of those are on ProQuest. They're ProQuest things. And then PubMed and JSTOR are their own things. But otherwise, all the other ones kind of can be collapsed into two larger databases, which we'll look at in a minute. But that's a good list of databases. You can also search databases directly from here. But I'll show you another way to do that, to search databases in a minute. Just wanted to point out that list. Relevant websites. Talking about if is a website going to be credible, questions to ask about it, and then some examples of good websites to look at for our field. And then also information on how to write a paper. And it's not specifically for the paper in this class, but generally writing research papers. And there's got a little demo there that's pretty good about the overall process of writing a paper. More information on plagiarism, links to help you with grammar, and I use it. Grammar Girl I use a lot when I'm not sure. Where does that comma go? Good thing to check yourself. And then more information on how to cite appropriately, especially things that can be tricky, like the URL or digital object identifier. Right? Information on that, and then other things, professional resources, links to professional associations, information about occupations. If you want to get a job with this degree at some point, maybe look there. What do you think? And then even more help on if you want to conduct original research, links to the IRB, how to conduct a research project, a good overview of that. So just lots of good information specific to us, so you don't have to go through the whole library's webpage to find it. It's all right here. Okay. So now I want to go back to the library's main page. So again, you could search databases through our area LibGuide. That's what that page is called, the Psychology LibGuide. But I typically start somewhere else, just because it's a little bit quicker. If you go to databases, and then if you're not at a university computer, pretty quick here, you would have to log in, and you have the top 5 databases. Again, here's ProQuest, JSTOR, EBSCO. EBSCO and ProQuest, probably the two biggest. They have a bunch of smaller databases that are searchable within them. Like Academic Search Complete can actually be searched from within EBSCO, which we'll see in a bit. And you've got them alphabetically. And the one that I most often go to, just because it's the one I started using and it's always been good for me, is Psych Info. So I'll go up here to P, Psych Info, and under P there's lots of other good psychology ones, psych tests, psych journals, psych articles. And then if you're at home, here is whenever, instead of going right to the page, it would say what's your username and password. And there's information on that page about what your username and password should be. Okay, so PsycInfo is an EBSCO hosted database. So if I just start searching here, I'm searching within PsycInfo. But if I want to broaden my search from within here, after I've gone to PsycInfo, I can kind of back out and say, well, let's look at some more databases that EBSCO owns. And so here's a big list, right? And all I have to do is click the ones I want to add to my search. So I can search PsycInfo and Academic Search Complete. And if you want information about them, you hold your mouse cursor over that little balloon, and it tells you a little bit about it. So that's a good one. And you can kind of go back to that list on our LibGuide if you want to see ones that are typically good for our field. Eric has a lot of educational stuff, which may pull up things that are relevant to you. The SocIndex has sociology stuff, may be good. Psych test, anything with psych in the title, I usually click. Psych articles. Medline to pull in some any kind of psychiatry things that may not show up in a psychology thing. The mental measurements yearbook, which has lots of assessment stuff. And that's pretty good. Hit OK. And now I'm searching in all of those databases. Now, if I want a broad search, I really want to be exhaustive and say, well, is there any article published anywhere about this? I might do that. Right? But I don't typically use all the databases. Let me show you why. Because when I use all the databases, the fields I have to limit my search are text, author, title, subject, source, abstract, and ISSN. And those are often sufficient, but sometimes I want more options. And if I go back now, deselect all, and I go back to just PsycInfo, right? That's maybe where I'll start. Boom, boom. Now I got all kinds of things I can limit it to. Like I say, I want to be able to search for something in the abstract, or a particular age group, or restrict the range of the data publication. I want to look at keywords, not just the subject. I want to be able to search by methodology. All kinds of things you can kind of add. And the other reason I typically start with just PsycInfo is when you search all the databases, obviously you're going to pull up more resources. And sometimes you can be overwhelmed by the number of results you get. So when I'm just, if I'm doing a paper and I say, well, okay, let's start a lit review, I'll start with PsycInfo, because usually when I start a lit review, I don't know exactly what it is I'm looking for. Right? It takes some reading to figure out really what it is you're looking for. So I start with that, and then after I've got a better idea, I may go back and broaden my search. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about finding articles. We'll kind of run through an example. So let's say maybe you're interested in, well, what are the effects of using social media? People are always on their phones, getting on the Facebook and Twitter, things like that. Are there any effects, ill effects, or maybe beneficial effects? Right? So that's a pretty broad question. And as I start searching and reading, I probably wind up narrowing it. So I go up here, and if I type in, what are the effects of social media? Well, let's see what happens. Probably not good things. Because these databases don't act like Google, right? You get 7 results. Right? So you can't ask it questions like that. You have to use these as intended to be used, which is as search fields. Oops. Back to where we were here. Okay. So I want to look at social media. Right? Now, if I put in just social media, it pulls up 3,228 results. Let's see if I put that phrase in parentheses. Should be the same thing, because all the parentheses tell the search engine is look for these words occurring closely together, just as if you didn't have them. Now, if I, instead of parentheses, use quotation marks, so we're at 3228. Now we search and we get far less, right? Because now it's searching for exactly these words. right? Social media occurring together. Whereas without it, you could get things like social-based media or media related to social gatherings. Like the words have to be close together, but they don't have to be right next to each other. So depending on how specific of a thing you're looking for, you may want to use quotation marks, or you may want to not. And the only reason you would use the parentheses is if you were doing this, right? Searching more than one thing in a line. So, because again, if you're searching for something, often there's different authors will use different terms for the thing you're interested in, right? So if I'm interested in social media, I'll obviously that makes sense as a search phrase, but also probably things like Facebook, maybe. Actually, let me go back here. Not and. Or if I do and, it will only give me back things that have both social media and Facebook. I want either social media or Facebook or Twitter or Tumblr, and I'm sure there are others. I'll do that for now. So just social media, we had a little over 3,000, right? So if I include Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr, I get more, right? So if I just searched for social media, I would have missed out on 1,000 possibly really good articles. Okay. Now notice I didn't select a limiter. I just said search all fields. That's what happens whenever you don't limit it. Now if we go back and we limit it to all text, see right now, and you would think you get the same number. Sometimes you don't. Right now we're at 4183. Searching all the text, 4325. So, searching in all text sometimes pulls up more stuff. If I want to get narrower, I can do things like the subject, and subjects is participants, so not that, but the subject, which probably won't pull up very much. Yeah, 601. It's only people use exactly that phrase. Other things I can look under keywords, which again is broader than subject but narrower than doing nothing. 1300. Oh, skipped over it. And the one that I often like to use, because if what you're searching for is kind of the most important thing to the study, like you don't want a study that, they talk about social media tangentially, but really the article is about something else. I don't want to have to wade through those articles. Articles that are directly about the effects of social media will have probably the words social media or Facebook or whatever in the title, right? Because it's central to the paper or the chapter or whatever it is I'm searching. So often putting title gets things more specific. So here again, rather than that 3,000 searching everywhere, 1,200, which is not bad. Another thing you can do, let's say, well, I want to know about, what are the effects of this? Well, I'll put in effect, which the word effect also picks up everywhere the word effects comes up. Maybe I also think influence, maybe cause, right? So all things that are kind of synonyms I can put on the same line and put or between them. So now it's going to search for anything related to kind of social media, all the synonyms I could think of, and things that have that and have these kind of effect words in them. So now we're at a little over 1,200, down to 400. And again, if I want to get really specific, again, if I were writing the title of an article about the effects of social media, I would have the effects of social media, the effects of Facebook in the title, right? So let's put title search there too. 118, right? Okay, so pretty narrow search. Now, what if I want to limit my search even a little bit more? So let's scroll down here a little bit, see what we got. These all actually look okay. Sometimes, especially when you're searching for something that's maybe more on the cutting edge, kind of newer research, there won't be very many published articles in good journals, but you got a lot of dissertations. So go back to here. So we have our stuff still looking at the titles. I can come down here. And here's the linked full text if you only want that, which again I don't recommend using because it limits you to only things that it thinks are full length text. And there's some things that are linked to full text that for some reason the database doesn't recognize that they are. So I don't recommend using that too often. You can limit the publication year, between 2000 and 2014. Some professors, want you to use only sources that are published in the past 7 years. I don't typically say that because there may be some seminal works that are a bit older that may be relevant and you want to look at. Publication type, peer-reviewed journals. Often that's a good thing. If you're not interested in books, you want to kind of cut those things out. You can do that. Leave everything for now. If you prefer to read in Arabic, obviously you could do that. Methodology, often that's helpful. So I really want to know if anybody did. I don't just want to read people's opinion papers about this thing. I want to see somebody actually did a study. So you can click empirical study, or there's clinical. Yeah, outcome treatment or outcome studies. Often this is relevant in our field if you're looking specifically for, okay, is there some sort of treatment outcome study looking at the use of EMDR treating depression. Okay, this may be a good thing to click. And again, I say maybe because it only works if the people who wrote that paper identified their methodology appropriately. If they mislabeled the methodology, you'll miss their paper. Okay. But if you're looking for something specific, that often helps. But here's the one I was looking for: exclude dissertations. And I typically would recommend excluding dissertations because if you find something that's a dissertation that didn't get published in a journal, either the person wasn't really interested in the research enough to get it published, or there was something wrong with it and it wasn't good enough to get published. If they did a really good dissertation and it was well conducted and they had interesting results, typically it'll show up as a dissertation, but it'll also show up as a journal article. If it doesn't show up as a journal article, you probably don't want it. So I often advise people to exclude those. Okay. So go back and look at our results again. Self-presentation and belonging on Facebook. So how personality influences social media. So it kind of got our keywords, but not what we wanted, right? This talks about how something influences your use of social media, and we're really interested in the effects of social media on you the other way, right? Let's scroll down a bit more. So, reduction of perceived social distance as an explanation for media's influence on personal risk perceptions. Okay, that's about media, not social media. Influence of social media use on discussion network heterogeneity and civic engagement. The moderating role of personality traits. Interesting. Okay, so that may be something that we're interested in. It's certainly something that has to do with they don't use the word effects, they use the word influence, but the role of social media and how it influences or affects other things. So you want to read the abstract, obviously you click on it. And some things to look at in terms of helping your search, the keywords that they list, right? So social media influences, okay, may be helpful. The subject, often looking down here, because sometimes you'll be searching for something and you won't know quite the right words to use, but you may stumble across a good article that then can key you into the right articles to use. Like if you're searching for stuff on video games, in PsycInfo anyway, the subject heading for things about video games isn't video games, it's computer games. Right? But if you search video games, it'll pull up articles about video games, and you go down, find the subject, and then click on that, and it'll search for Anything with video, with computer games in the subject, which may pick up things, articles that people don't use the term video games, right? If something's published outside of the U.S., they may use slightly different terms. Anyway, what do we have here? Online social networks. Okay, so maybe that's the common subject. So I'm going to go ahead and, if you click on that, it'll do a search for things with that as the subject. But I'm just going to copy it for now. I'll show you why in a minute. Okay, so we can read the abstract to see if we want it. It doesn't say that we have full text, but we can just double check, which I always recommend doing. Hey, and we do. See, it didn't say we did, but we do. But we're not going to go look at that right now. So you can get that article. Another thing to look at, if you find an article that seems to really be right on the nose of what you're interested in, look at what they cited, right? So they had 61 cited references. You can click on that and go through, because typically if you have a really good article, they'll have cited other articles that you would be interested in. So you can go through and look at those. It may be something interesting. Let's go back to original results. Okay, sorry. Go back to our article here we were looking at. Oh, that's not the one. My apologies. That one. Okay, so the other thing to look at is the number of times it was cited in this database, which obviously the newer the article is, the less likely it is to be cited. But things that are a couple of years old, if it's not cited at all, it may not be that great. Or it may just be that it's a understudy field. But if it's cited a lot, well, that's interesting. And the other thing is, if somebody cited that article, they probably wrote something that you're interested in too. So you can look at that. So click on times cited in this database, and you can find other stuff. This one, okay, not particularly relevant to us, but you never know. And then you have all your tools here, which you can, I won't go through here, but you can read more about how to save your searches. Oh, one thing, if you click on cite to say, oh, how do I cite this? It gives you AMA, APA, all this stuff. This is a good start, and you can maybe copy and paste this into a Word, but it's not perfectly APA style. The hanging indent isn't correct, and sometimes there'll be other errors. And sometimes they're errors because they typed it in wrong. Sometimes they're errors because the citation was written under and entered into the computer under an earlier version of the manual. So just because the citation shows up like this on the library's webpage or a database's webpage doesn't mean it's right, but it's often a good start. But you have to double check it yourself, make sure the number's right, the formatting is right, all that stuff. Your responsibility. Okay. Well, let's go back to this one more time. So one more thing. Oh, here it is. If you find a kind of a really good article, you say, well, I want to find more stuff like this. Click Find Similar Results, and it uses this kind of algorithm. We can see what it searched up there to generate more stuff, which that seems to be a bit much. So sometimes it's helpful, sometimes less so. Right? Okay, and again, I can keep narrowing. Like if I've been reading through and I say, oh, there's some stuff, but there sure was a lot of stuff on social media. But I want to look at particularly its influence on romantic relationships. Right. Well, okay, then I'm going to put in everything I can think of related to that. So marriage or marital or relationship. And a relationship is a tough one in terms of helping to limit things, because we use the word not only for relationships between people, but relationships between and among variables. So that may end up being too broad, and I may have to cut that out depending on what I get. So couple, blah blah blah. What else? Or dating. Okay, let's see. And I'll leave the field open for now because I've already got two pretty narrow things looking at the title. 24. Okay, and that's a pretty reasonable thing to look at 24 citations. It's not 1,000. Okay, so that's just a little bit of info on searching for a source. A few more things to think about. So again, I'm going to go back here for a second. Whenever we looked at stuff for just social media, let's search everywhere. We had a lot of results, 3,000, right? And well, yeah, that sure is a lot. And if you're just beginning your search, often a good place to start is looking for review articles, because that's one thing that a lot of academics make a living doing, is reading articles and summarizing them. So if you figure out kind of a good kind of line here for your main subject, right, social media, Facebook, whatever, or maybe you're looking at PTSD, so you're going to put in PTSD, trauma, traumatic, re-experiencing, whatever. Put in as many descriptors as you can for that thing, and then add in the next thing for the and. The words review or meta-analysis in the title, right? Because again, if you're writing a review of the research, typically it begins with a review of blah blah blah. So we search for that, and it gives us, well, from 3,000 to 166. And one last thing. Sorry, I keep saying one last thing. I've left this as and so far. It also can be changed to or not. Sometimes not is helpful if, for some reason, whatever you're using pulls up articles from some unrelated subject and just happens to have a word in common. This is more likely to happen if you're using kind of a whole lot of databases like Academic Search Complete and all those others. You may end up pulling some business stuff and you want to kind of get rid of those. So let's see, maybe, okay, we don't want anything to do with education, right? We want to know about social media, but we don't want to hear about social media in schools. So we'll say social media, a review of that stuff, but not anything where we're talking about social media use in schools. So we go from 166 down to 137. So there aren't a whole lot of those, but we cut some of those out. Okay. So when you're searching for articles, those are just a couple of tips. The other thing is keep track of what terms you're using to search with. Maybe have some note paper beside you and write it down. That way when you're going back later, I thought I saw an article. Where was that? What did I find? Did I look for that? I can't remember. Well, keep track. But look around. There's lots of information out there. Most of it pretty good. But you are going to be more successful if you're systematic when searching. And by systematic, I mean starting broad and then narrowing based on the results you're getting. So you start broad, you start looking through titles and abstracts, and then you narrow further, then you narrow further, then you narrow further, and you find exactly what you're looking for. And then once you do that, I'd say go back out. So I found kind of the key 2 or 3 articles exactly on my topic. Now, based on what kind of words are used in those articles, what they cited, who cited them, I'm going to go back out and see what other related articles I may have missed when trying to focus and find the exact right thing. Okay. Hope that helps. That's all for now.